What up friends, Liron here. I'm really excited. Today I have something really cool for you. Once in a while a painting really works well for me and I feel like the colors are correct and the values I used are right and the composition is good. So this is one of those instances and I really want to share with you a full painting process of me, and I'm gonna narrate it and explain what I've done. So sit back, enjoy, and let me know what you think. Okay, so I will share the link to the reference image in the description box. It's a beautiful one. Now what I'm doing is laying down the initial wash, and actually only recently I really began to understand the meaning of the initial wash, which is, it's more like an undertone for the entire painting, and what you want to do is sort of aspire to have it as even as possible and as smooth as possible between the different areas, and it's okay if it blends and if it merges one color into the other. It's perfectly fine because it's all going to be covered by the darker values. What you saw me now just doing is leaving little highlights. It's for people that are in the water. And I will later go back with darker pigment and sort of get them in, which is actually a part of the painting I'm not really pleased with, but the overall composition and the values are good, so that's good enough. Now I'm using a lighter value for the boat when compared to the ocean. And I'm leaving a highlight on the boat, as you saw on the right now. I'm not going to cover that for now, I believe. Or I may cover it and then leave it lighter. And actually, so what I learned recently is, this is from sort of doing research on many other successful watercolor artists, is the importance of getting the larger shapes right. So for example, in here the larger shapes are the trees and the horizon, the ocean, the sand, and the boat. And what makes a painting look good is not the details that you add in the end or stuff like that. It's really the large shapes, and most importantly that those large shapes have the correct value. They're dark where they should be and they're light in places they should be light. So for this example, you can see that from the sky, if we move downwards, the trees are a little darker than the sky. And then the water is a little darker than the sky, but a little brighter, lighter than the trees. And this is all really important. Because it's easy to see a painting and only see the final details and say, well, yeah, okay, so the final details are what's important, when it's not. It's just like decorations in the end. Now what I'm doing is just wet and wet, and I'm spritzing a bit of dark pigment into the already wet layer to create the sandy effect. One note on what I just did actually, when you spritz some paint or you do wet and wet, you want to make sure that the pigment you put into the wet layer is more concentrated than the layer, because if it's too watery, if it's too diluted, it will spread weirdly and it'll push the pigment away by the water. So when you do wet and wet, you always want to make sure that the paint you put in is of a pigment different and preferably stronger. Like what I'm doing now, I'm darkening the layer using a pigment that may look on the palette too dark. Okay, so with the trees, I left this darker stripe at the bottom. And now I'm starting to divide the rowboat into its own separate values. So light comes from the right in this painting, and so the left side will be darker, and also we're going to have a beautiful strong shadow on the right side of the inner side of the boat. Okay, and it's really this beautiful contrast that creates the interest in this painting. And you can see that even if I mess up in some areas or I kind of draw incorrectly, because the larger shapes are accurate, the impression is good and your eye can read what it sees very well. So now I mixed a very dark, almost like green, black, kind of dark olive. And I'm now applying it to the right side of the boat because this is the most shaded area here. I'm not doing this entirely in an orthodox way, I think, because I'm moving relatively quickly into using a darker value, and you can see that it forces me to do negative painting around the oars, and because usually you go from light to dark, but in this case the oars are also going to be dark, and I kind of don't touch them for now, and it's not necessarily the best way in the context of the process, but I think if you have an image in your mind and you know what you want to express, it can work. And this is why I think it works here. So I'm sort of bringing out the texture of the rows of wooden panels, and you can really feel them. You can feel them pop out. And this is the seat, and under it there's going to be also a strong shadow. I'm keeping the right area of the boat also pretty light, almost white, as you can see, and this is what will create also the interesting point of contrast in this painting. I'll just mention that what I think I did really right in this one, really correct, was actually the color selection. I noticed that, now darkening a bit the water because it was a bit too bright for my taste. I noticed that sometimes my drawings are good and my values are correct. With values I have a good read, I think, on the pigment to water ratio, but my problem is actually in mixing the right color and colors that work together. And here I sort of got that right, and I think it's really much more significant than I thought. It surprised me to see the difference, because just today I did another painting and everything is really good, but kind of the colors aren't really that good, and it really screwed the painting up just because of the color. Now I'm adding the very dark shadow to the left of the boat. This is the darkest part of the picture, if I'm not mistaken, or it competes with the right side of the boat, of the inner side of the boat. And I'm adding this dune, mini sand dunes, footprints kind of texture to the beach, to the sand in the areas around the shadow. And this really puts the shadow in there in a way that's more congruent to the eye. Because if I would just put the shadow in and all the rest of the sand was this bright yellow, it wouldn't look good. You really want to get that texture in there. And I also made some use of dry brush at the bottom. Now, darkening a little more of the left side. I should have probably used a darker paint, but it works to my advantage now that I do the wet and wet with the blue, because the blue gives it really nice character. And I'm leaving the white stripe there because there's actually this rope thing, and I want to paint it later on with yellow pigment. So the thing here is now I'm using also yellow, and it's to convey that the sun is actually lighting the boat, really using a direct light. And I'm not sure I was able to convey that because I think the edges of the boat should be probably lighter than the ocean in the background. So I kind of tried to convey the sun being poured onto the boat, onto the sides of the boat. Not sure how accurate it turned out to be, but the overall composition, the large shapes, the values are in place, so that's good. And now again, further darkening that right side, that point of contrast is important because this inner side of the boat, like light can barely reach it. You want to go really dark in this area. Now I actually made a lot of mistakes in the bottom right corner where I'm painting now. I left a place for reflection. And you know, the area where the water covers the sand, but it's really a thin layer of wet sand, basically, and it reflects stuff. So I tried to get that effect in, and I kind of just forgot to leave place for it. So that's that. And now there's also this shadow of the ripples and the foam of the water on the sand. I think I went a little too dark on the left, but it turns out okay in the overall painting. I'm adding a bit of a shadow also under the boat, which is really important. Shadows are really more important sometimes than the object itself, because it really grounds it, it anchors it, which is really important. Now I don't know what I did there, I have no idea. I put some green yellow there and I just lost it for a few seconds. Yeah, you can see that the light starts to pour in from the window onto my desk, and I kind of correct that in a few moments. Overall, I think this painting took about 45 minutes, I think, something like that, and you're watching it about twice fast, double speed. So now we have this red stripe on the top of the boat. By the way, there's like lightning now outside, and thunder. Started raining about half an hour ago. I actually love the rain when I'm inside. It's really a good feeling. I even watched, I think it was an article once that actually said that there is an emotion, like an official emotion. I forgot the name, of course, but for that feeling that you get when you're inside and outside it's raining and thunders. It's a feeling of safety, you know. Anyway, I'm negative painting around the letters, which turned out to be too much for me. It's supposed to say lifeguard and I completely messed it up. But at least it gives the impression of something, like a text or whatever. And on the left, of course, to be congruent with the rest of the shape of the boat, you want to go darker with your red. So on the right side, you see a very bright, strong red. Maybe not even bright, it's actually faded. I think I could have made it a little more saturated. And on the left, it's darker. And now I'm putting in that rope I told you about. And I will soon add some black paint for two hooks, sort of metal hooks that grab it in place. And I guess it's a rope to pull the boat out of the water, probably, something like that. And notice how I left the oars up until now, and I will soon paint them, I think now, yeah. So I'm painting the oars. I think that's the right word, right? Oars, correct me if I'm mistaken, all these words. English is not my first language, but I'm kind of okay, I think. But sometimes words they just disappear from my vocabulary, and I'm not sure I can. Yeah. Anyway, the second oar, if it is indeed called an oar, and I'm trying to keep the left side of the oars darker and the right side lighter. And so now I'm coming in with a little more yellowish tone. Again, the logic is that the sun shines from the left to the right, and so the right side of the oars is lighter, and hopefully it kind of conveys it. But then I go back with more dark to make the contrast even stronger, because it wasn't strong enough for my taste. You see, you can tell that there's a difference between the right thin strip of yellow, but it's not really that well defined, so I'm going to go back in a second and do that. Same thing with the seat. Now, like, there's also the shadow under the seat and on the, not under it, but rather on the side that's not facing the sunlight. And now again, coming back to the oars, darkening the left part because the contrast between the light and dark wasn't strong enough. Also in the second one. The thing is, when you kind of zoom out and look at it or squint your eyes, it looks pretty good. So now the shadow also under the boat should be much darker. And it's really important to get to again anchor it to the beach, because the shadow is what anchors your object onto the ground. Many times when you even paint people, you kind of want to get their shadow to be really well defined, even more than the people themselves, depending on the time of the day. And it gets you a really crisp effect of strong sunlight. Basically, the stronger the light source is and the more direct it is, the darker the shadow. There's a very logical correlation, a relationship between the two. Now I'm trying to add the people in the ocean in the background, and I think what I should have done here is use more of a red tone to sort of hint that it's flesh tone. So this is my bad, because they feel kind of disconnected from the overall scene, in my opinion. I don't think I gave a good impression of people at all. Luckily, the rest of the composition works, so it still looks good, I think. But the people part wasn't that good. Adding a little shadow to the rope. And signing, which means I'm done, basically. There's basically one thing left to do, which is remove the tape, and you'll notice how it immediately turns it into a painting. And I hope you enjoyed the process and the painting. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think. Is the length of the video good? Would you like to see more of the process? Maybe should I cut it shorter? I'd be happy for feedback. Also, just to update you, as I think I told you a couple of times, this month is really action-packed for me, like so much work to do in terms of my business and several courses that I'll be releasing really soon. I'm working really hard on them. I woke up today at 5 a.m. and I think I'll continue with this momentum like that. So hopefully I will soon be able to devote more time to produce more videos. Next month will be really dedicated to art, like less business and more art making. I'm actually going to be in Paris for 3 weeks, so there's going to be crazy views, and I really love this city, so I'll be out a lot sketching. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be sure to update you on what's going on. And that's it. Be sure to follow me on Snapchat and Instagram. I really hope to see you again in another video. And until then, take care.